target places where people come together because they think that can increase our fear. And I think that it is not only an act of love, but it is an act of courage this evening that we decide that in the face of the savage hatred in Orlando, that we are going to come together as a people. It would be easy, with our hearts broken, to feel rage this evening, and especially to the members of the LGBT community. I want to say that I understand the fear and the anger and the rage that may be in your hearts this evening. It's understandable. But I also want to say that I believe that the majority of Americans believe in love, and they believe in peace, and they are not the kind of people that would do the things that happened in Orlando this morning. It was Mother Teresa who said, if there is no peace, it's because we have forgotten that we belong to each other. And so that's why I think it is so very important that we come together and demonstrate that we are one people. We do belong together. And the only way that we're going to defeat the enemies of this country and the enemies of our people is to be united. And I so appreciate you all coming to Ferndale this evening. I want to acknowledge some of the elected officials who have joined us. This was put together at the very last minute, and they have busy schedules, but I want you to know that elected leaders from throughout the region are here. Mayor Jim Ellison of Royal Oak, our good friend, is here. Thank you, Mayor. Oakland County Sheriff Mike Bouchard, I've been on the phone with him a number of times today. His folks are assisting our police department, and I appreciate your efforts, Sheriff. I want to mention that the sheriff has reminded me one of the things that we can all do to support the people of Orlando is to give blood. And so I know he and his office is organizing a blood drive for Tuesday, but when you can, where you can, it would be helpful to the folks there if you could give blood, and I encourage you all to do that. From our city council, Greg Pollica and Raylon Leaks-May and Melanie Piana, our mayor pro tem, are all here. Thank you so much for being here. Our neighbors to the east in Macomb County Commissioner Fred Miller is here, and I want to thank him for traveling all the way from Mount Clemens to be with us here. From our school district, you know, this is an important lesson that we need to pass on to our kids, that love is more important than hate, and that coming together will be the answer to those who want to divide us. And I am so proud that our school board member, Nan Mueller-Kier, and our school superintendent, Blake Pruitt, are here with us today as well. Please give them a round of applause. It is possible to live in peace. Peace is possible, and peace begins with us individually, and it begins with us collectively. It's why we have come together tonight to demonstrate that our country is a country of peace, that we believe peace is possible, and that we will not be divided. And so once again, I want to just express my sincere thanks for all of you coming to join with us this evening. Before I introduce the next woman who is really responsible, I would like to give a moment of silence, and that is for the 50 or more victims in Orlando, their family, and their friends who are grieving this evening. We grieve with them, and for one moment we are silent with them. Thank you very much. Last weekend we celebrated Ferndale Pride here right in downtown Ferndale, and we celebrated and we were excited and we came together, and the woman who organizes that is Julia Music. And if you don't know Julia, she is a force to be reckoned with. She is a wonderful soul in this planet and in our community. And this morning I got a text from her with the idea to do this rally, and I said absolutely, and whatever I can do to help, I'm happy to do so. So please give a loud Ferndale round of applause to the organizer of Ferndale Pride and the organizer of this vigil this evening, Julia Music.
Hello, and thank you for coming. Today we hold our flag upside down as we're mourning the loss of so many. If you feel like you need another vigil, on Tuesday, Reverend Roland Stringfellow will be holding a vigil at Affirmations at 7:30. Good evening, brothers, sisters of our queer community and our allies. I didn't think a week ago when I spoke to you with enthusiasm about how far we've come in the movement towards equality in our community that I would be addressing a tragic setback. Today in Orlando, as many of you know, 50 people lost their lives, 53 are hospitalized, and a police officer is injured. All of the victims were inside Pulse, one of Orlando's 2 gay nightclubs, a place where many gather to celebrate and be themselves. In no way is this not an act of hate, an act of terrorism, and an act of ignorance by the shooter. Unfortunately, in cases like this, no matter what the outcome is, there's no justice for the families and the victims. The people who lost their lives in their club were doing what we should all be free to do. They were celebrating life, freedom, and happiness. They were celebrating this month dedicated to our people, Pride Month. Now, one single act has friends of mine who've been happily out for years questioning if they should go back in the closet. This is not an appropriate response. It's up to us to set examples of what strong, powerful queer people look like and act like and are like. We didn't choose to be spokespeople when we were born, but we must bravely move forward. That is at least what we can do to honor the lives of the people of Orlando who perished last night. Finally, do not let the media fool you. This is not an act of Islam. This is not what the Muslim religion teaches. This was an act of an extremist. This is an act of terrorism. We have a large Muslim community in our area, and for many years, they were largely excluded from the queer community. It's been in recent years that the Muslim people are participating in LGBTQAI events in visible numbers. Please open your arms wide to them. I've heard their stories, and they face unspeakable acts of discrimination just by being Muslims in our country. Please don't perpetuate that hate. It will serve no good in the world. As I read the news this morning, my thought was, most days I forget how brave we are just because of who we are. In everything you do, please be brave, be bold, be kind, be true, be you. Thank you. We have many leaders of our community here, and the next leader I want to call to speak is Deacon Angela Lepard. For those of you who don't know, Angela was the first female to perform a wedding ceremony, and she was the first person to perform a legal mass wedding ceremony at Ferndale Pride last week.
Thank you, Julia. Again, my name is Angela Lepard with the Community of Christ the Good Shepherd here in Ferndale. We're an independent Catholic community. As with many of you, I was at a loss for words. In fact, as I was trying to find the words to share with you today, I was at a loss. I was feeling both overwhelmed with feelings and with thoughts. As a faith leader within the Ferndale community, but also as a part of the LGBT community, I'm the B in the LGBT. I want to comfort you. I want to tell the people in the LGBT community that you are gifts. You are made in the image of God. You are the prophets. And those that are parading hate cloaked as religion are wrong. Those of us that are inclusive want you to know that these extremists are not representative of the faith community. I feel the need to talk about how close this hits to home. When I was in college, I was introduced to the gay community by the Latino community. And I don't know if anybody knew, but it was Latino night at Pulse. And while I was having my Latino night with my Latino friends yesterday, this morning one of them texted me and said, "Did you hear? Did you hear about the lives lost?" And I think about how safe I felt when I was in college going to Menjo's with my Latino friends. And I think about those lost. I think about all of you that lost friends. I have friends here today, Raphael and David, that actually lived in Orlando. Please know my love is with you. I pray that you feel God's comfort. Right now, I'd like to speak with those within the faith community and those that are allies. Please know your prayer is important. Please continue to pray, but understand prayer is active. Prayer is not silent. Prayer is loving your neighbor. Prayer is standing up to hate. Prayer is what's going to help all of us through this. But understand that prayer is active. It's love. So please remember to love each other. Please remember to pray for the victims of Pulse. Pray for their families to feel the loving embrace of God. Please don't get overwhelmed by the hate. Please remember to love each other, and remember again that those that did this act were not representative of God's love for you. Thank you.
And now I'd like to call upon Erica Moisey of the Queer Legal Project to speak.
There's nothing in life that could have prepared me to stand in front of all of you to find the words for this senseless tragedy. Early this morning, a shooter walked into Pulse nightclub and violently gunned down over 100 of our community members. According to the shooter's father, the shooter had seen two men kissing out in public a few months back, and it enraged him. That hate resulted in the worst mass shooting in the United States history, with 50 dead and 53 wounded. I faced both physical violence and countless moments of verbal hate in my LGBT life. I know so many others who have experienced the whole spectrum of hate, both physically and emotionally. But this has truly been the most shocking reminder of just how vulnerable our community is to hatred and violence. I came of age in the LGBT bar and nightclub scene. Stilettos, Rainbow Room, Menjo's, Necto, Backstreet, and Boys Town in Chicago, just to name a few. The list goes on. But they were places that I could fully be myself, where I could dance until all hours of the night without judgment, and where I met so many of my friends, where for a few hours I felt freed by the sound of Madonna mixed with a thumping techno beat. And in a world that oftentimes did not feel safe or welcoming, I felt my community embrace me with open arms. I felt love, and I felt a part of something, and I felt at home. When I woke up this morning to the tragic news, I cried my eyes out. To think that such a hateful person could walk into the safe space that we have created for ourselves and carry out the worst shooting massacre in American history breaks my heart. But it doesn't break my spirit. It doesn't break our spirit as members of the beautifully diverse LGBT community. We might be heartbroken, we might not be able to make sense of this tragedy yet, and we may never be able to fully do so. Okay, I'll say louder. But I will tell you all of this. We are a resilient people. We are strong. We are warriors and champions of our own basic human rights. And there is no amount of hate or violence that will ever drive us into the shadows or put out our brightly burning flame. To the families and friends of the victims, I'm so sorry that such a senseless tragedy took the life of someone that you love and hold dearly. There are no words that can ever give back what was taken from you. The victims in Orlando will never be forgotten. We are all Orlando. To every single LGBT person across the world, from the biggest city to the smallest town, I just want to tell you that I love you, and that we will make it through this together as we always do. With love, courage, and compassion, the hate will never destroy us. In the famous lyrics of Christina Aguilera, you are beautiful no matter what they say. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. Reverend Rick Beatty, will you give a few words, please?
I'm Rick Beatty. I'm the pastor of Unity of Royal Oak in Royal Oak, a neighboring town. And I wish that the reason we're together were different, but it is so good to see such a diverse sea of people, young and old, gay and straight, different colors, faith or not, all of us here together. And that's the message of the America that I live in. Our families go out, of course, to all those who died or were wounded in this senseless attack, and to their families, their loved ones, their friends, and to the people of Orlando. I cannot imagine what the people in that town are feeling right now. And if there is a bright spot in any of this, when I finally found out, because I'm one of those clergy folks who don't turn the news on Sunday because I got work to do. This afternoon I turned on CNN at about 4 o'clock, and there were armies of people lining up to give blood. That was an amazing thing when we come together to take positive action. It's beautiful. And my prayer is that we might all stay awake to the pain in each other for a moment. Because in America lately, it seems like we are lulled to go back to sleep quickly. And sisters and brothers, it's important that we remain awake to the hurt and the hatred that cause these kinds of things. This was not just an attack on the LGBT community, which I've been a part of since I was 5, but an attack on all of us and on the dream of America and what we stand for and what makes us strong, and that is our diversity. Out of many comes one. That is the message of our country. We pray also that we might find the places in ourselves where we judge other people because of differences in skin color or nationality, the words they use to refer to God, their political affiliation, the way they define their gender, or who they love. It's all of that. It's all of that hate. We pray also for the perpetrator of this violence. Take a deep breath. And for the fear and the anger and the hatred that erupted through him in this way. Whether this was an act of terrorism or a hate crime, the result is the same. The more our nation is focused on differences, the more divided we are. The more we focus on violence, the more violence we have. The worse it gets, the worse it gets. This is just the way things work. We teach in Unity the law of mind action, which says that thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. I'll be joining with others tonight here. And starting tomorrow at noon for a month, I'm inviting all people of faith and those who don't believe in anything to join me energetically in 1 minute of prayer every day at noon for 30 days. We must begin to shift our focus from violence to peace. Let's help turn that tide. Wherever you are at noon, join in prayer. And as my dear sister said, prayer is active. Prayer is not passive. Prayer changes things because it changes us. God bless you all.
Today we're very lucky that we have so many allies in the crowd, and I have had this ally since I was 12 years old. He's a social justice warrior. So Nick Klaus, can you please come up and speak?
Thanks, Julia. Julia called me a few hours ago and asked me if I would come and speak as an ally, which is very humbling and an honor. So thank you, everyone, for giving me a minute. I'm on the board of the National Lawyers Guild for the Michigan-Detroit chapter, as well as a national organization, and I just want to extend our sympathies to everyone. It's an intimidating thing to come as an ally and try to say anything, because I can't possibly internalize the struggle the way that people within the community have their entire lives. But what I can try and do as a neighbor is continue to love everyone involved in their struggle, and keep working on behalf of the human rights and civil rights of all. When you're in this line of work, you go to a lot of vigils. Trayvon Martin, Anaya, Ferguson, Sandy Hook, as the mayor mentioned, and so on and so on and so forth. And as I was thinking about it today, I thought to myself, what can I possibly say in the face of another tragedy? It's hard to stay optimistic. It's hard to keep hoping and believing. But I agree with the deacon that we have to keep moving forward. And in order to combat the violence and the patriarchal systems that give rise to that drive hate, that perpetuates again the violence, we have to continue to love. A great man once said, though it may seem ridiculous, the true revolutionary is guided by a great sense of love, and I believe that. So the only thing I can say to you really today, for my part, is that I will continue to commit myself to that end, to pursuing that ideal. And I would only ask that those of you that know me that are here, and maybe some of you that don't, will hold me accountable to that goal. And then you'll listen to the others that came up here and look around at each other, see the lines to give blood and these great outpourings of love, and still believe that we can get through it and that we can continue to pursue that ideal. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Our last speaker tonight is Reverend Kimmy Regal.
I stand before you as a person of faith, an ally in the struggle. We've come together today, tonight, as we have in the past and as we will in the future. We come together for support. We are overwhelmed by feelings of grief, fear, and as others have said, rage. We lean into one another, into the strength of our fellow human beings to bear the weight of this terrible moment. The ties of our connections grow richer as we bear this pain together. We hold in our hearts the loved ones of those who have been killed. They did not pass away. They did not simply die. They were killed by hatred. Under the grief is a seething rage, and this is the shadow we must harness. We must not allow it to shove us back into hiding, to cause us to stop, to give up. We who are allies must stand shoulder to shoulder, demonstrating our bind to this common cause, doing all we can to end the violence and stand on the side of love. In the days to come, we will learn their names, and so the tears will fall again and again, and the rage will grow. The senseless hatred could become unbearable, and still we must not let it harden us to the love of one another, a love we hold dear, the love and support of a community that has saved lives. We must not let the hatred drain us or defeat us. We are strong. We will walk on together. Tonight, we cry and grieve, and the tears fall. Tomorrow, we collect the anger and move forward into the light. May it be so.
As many of you know, law enforcement went in and were able to get the shooter. However, one of them was injured, and we want to make sure that we send love and prayers to him. We are fortunate that Sheriff Bouchard, Oakland County Sheriff Bouchard, is here with us, and he'd like to give a word to law enforcement.
Actually, I'd like to speak on, if I could, with the indulgence of Chief Collins and law enforcement in general, that we stand united, opposed to the vision of hate and the vision of evil that exists in our world. And I've been on the phone a good chunk of the day, talked to your chief and your mayor, but also with the Joint Terrorism Task Force. I've talked to the sheriff from Orange County, which is Orlando, who's a friend of mine. and know that we stand united on everything we can possibly do, not only in this case for the victims and the family that will never be the same, but for the community at whole. Every year my SWAT team goes and trains, and I usually come up with a theme and put it on a t-shirt, and one of the recent themes was Defend Oakland. Understand that if anyone is attacked by evil or hate in this county, they attack us all. And your law enforcement is united in doing everything we possibly can to defend and protect you. And if there's any concerns, the one thing that I know, having gone to New York City after 9/11 and New Orleans after Katrina, I've been in situations and seen people's response. Two things typically happen. A great deal of anxiety and fear bubbles up, and a great deal of helplessness kind of bubbles shortly thereafter. The anxiety and fear obviously is helped by being in touch with your fellow human beings, reaching out and letting them know that you care. Sometimes it's a hug, a call, or an email. That's usually one of the best ways to reduce the anxiety, and know that your law enforcement is doing their job immediately thereafter to look for ways to prevent hateful acts from exercising themselves. We can't eliminate hate or evil in this world. In fact, I wear a t-shirt when I work out. I'll never look away from evil. We will face it down. But we can together try to prevent them from exercising the full interest of that evil nature. And the second thing is, after the anxiety and the fear, which is what really terrorists seek, and we will not let them win by allowing that to grow, is that helplessness that we can then forge into a positive direction. And you know, when New York City was there, when I was working at Ground Zero on the recovery, you'd see people, massage therapists or doctors or cooks, they were all outside the line looking to do anything, to give a massage or cook a meal or pray, whatever it was, because people have an innate goodness and want to be involved after they see this kind of evil. And so one of the things that always evidences itself is people wanting to do something good. And you see that tonight with people wanting to come together and share their support and their love. And as the mayor mentioned, we're going to do a blood drive because they are depleting their resources there. And even if it doesn't ultimately end up going there, it will help someone here. So there's always positive outcome to negative actions, and that is what defeats evil and hate. So thank you for allowing me to be with you. Together we'll get through this, and more importantly, we'll get beyond this.